Hi, I'm Teresa Chang.
Hi, I'm Felicia Grant Cummings.
Hi, I'm Kim Johnson with Moms Navigating Autism.
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to the show.
Happy New Year.
What I wanted to talk about was a time in our life. My son was about 2, and I kind of feel this is important because I feel that if a parent ever gets into this situation, then maybe they might know what they need to do, because it was a learning experience for me. And had I not been at work and spoken to the legal staff at work, I wouldn't have known what to do. But I had a sitter, and she was taking care of my son. And then we were set to go on a trip. And she came to me and said that she would, when I got back, I wouldn't have a sitter anymore because she was going to look for a job or something. And I couldn't understand why. And I was like, well, you're telling us now, like we're leaving tomorrow. I get a phone call from my former sitter. And she said that someone, that I was going to be getting a call from someone, and she wanted to explain what the call was about, because they came and they arrested her son for sexually molesting one of the other kids. And as a mom, what went through my mind, because my son was 2 at the time, and I knew that he wasn't able to express himself. So the panic that went through my head, and like I didn't know what to say. I was just panicking. And so she was saying that, this person was going to call, and there's a social worker that needed to talk to my son. And I was like, all this stuff was like all these words coming at me, and I just didn't know what to say. So I was at work, and I didn't. I just started crying, and my boss came to me and she's like, "You better go home." All right, so I went home. I told my husband, and we're just trying, because we didn't want to put ideas into our son's head, but we didn't know whether he'd understand either. So to question him, we didn't know what to do. So I went to work the following day, and I said to my husband, I said, the only thing I have are the resources at work. I work for a law school. I have tons of lawyers at work. I'm going to go and ask them, like, what should I do? I don't know. And so one of the ladies there, she says to me, listen, one of the lawyers, she says, first off, your child has special needs. You don't want anybody else to talk to him unless they're trained in autism. And you can ask them to do that. Yes, they want access to your child. Yes, they want to talk to your child. That's fine. You're not denying that. But you want a professional that has knowledge of autism to speak with your child. And so this lady calls me, and I said to her, I was pretty much prepared at that point. And I said, listen, I said, I don't mind you talking to my child. I don't have an issue with that. I said, but my son has autism. And if you cannot find somebody to talk to them, I'm going to have a problem with that. I need somebody to speak with him that has knowledge of autism. And so she said, fine, we will find you somebody. And so that's what happened. And then about a few weeks later, we got a phone call. We found somebody that's an expert in autism. Can you bring him to this place? And at that time, I want to say it was a Children's Advocacy Center, which I believe it's located in Valhalla by the medical center near WIHD. I don't think they're the same place, but it's somewhere near there. And so we took our son down, and the lady spoke to him. My husband and I waited outside, and they spoke to him. And actually, when she came back out, she said that they don't believe that he was molested. Um, you know, and they believe that someone that the other kids, were molested. Now, this incident. Now, let me just do this time frame because I think I might have confused things. Or this happened when my son was 2. However, by the time we got a phone call, it wasn't a few months later. Now, it was actually a few years later. Because at that point, my son was already in first grade. And so we, it was still completely crazy. Then I'm going to start crying now.
You okay? It's still traumatic to you now. It's okay. When any of our children are put into situations, we as mothers, we take it. We take the brunt, and it really is hard. Hard to navigate through that. We're happy you're sharing this with us, Teresa, because it's going to help so many other people. Even if they have somebody to relate to, even if they haven't had the exact scenario, but they may have some pieces of your story to relate to. And that's why we do this, right, Kim? That's why we do this. Because we want other moms and dads to be able to relate to our stories and not feel alone and not feel isolated. That there are other people who have walked similar paths.
All our biggest fear. So
It
even
is.
with neurotypical,
Do I look bad?
you always look bad. Does that make you feel better and smile? I'm like, wanted to laugh. You good?
Yeah. You trust people. You go to work. They take care of your children. To get a call like that, it's very traumatic. But you got to keep it together. And you have to think clearly. And you have to know your rights. You have to ask people. Had I not gone to work and asked the attorneys, what I should do, I probably would have let the police just talk to my child. But I had all these concerns, and I didn't want ideas to be put into his mind. It was pretty easy for me to figure out who the child was that had been molested. Because she was watching my child, and then she was watching a brother and sister pair. So if it wasn't my child, it was the brother and sister pair, So I called the other mother. And the other mother said to me she was going to ask her son. And she came back to me and she said that her son, who was older than my son, and his sister, he protected. That poor little child would rather have them take him than have the person molest his sister or my son. And actually, we were actually pretty lucky because our son was potty trained later than most kids. And so that saved him also. But my heart really goes out for her, for the other mother, because while it's a fear for me, it it was real for her. This really did happen to her child. Um, but to the parents, really, if your child doesn't want to go to the babysitter, you should ask. Ask them what's going on. Ask what, you know, try to maintain friends with whoever else might also be watching. It's it's something that um it kind of you can check up between what the other mothers are saying. I'm not saying that all sitters are bad. I'm not saying that at all. But if your child has an aversion to going to the sitters, you have to ask why. If these things happen, um you really keep a close eye, question, whatever, maybe check with the other parents, maybe their children saw something, but it was, I was lucky it didn't happen to my child. Keep in touch with somebody else that the sitter's watching, somebody else there. At least you have another set of eyes, but also know your rights. I would never have known to ask to have somebody that is familiar with autism, has been trained in autism, to talk to my child. I probably would have just let them talk to my child. There's certain things that I didn't want. I wanted to know, but I didn't want to put any ideas into his head either.
I think what you stated is a lesson for all parents, neurotypical parents and parents that have children on the spectrum. Pay attention, observe when your child has an aversion. I can remember my mother telling me a story that she was trying to go back to work, and she was trying out different sitters, and there was one sitter that she said when she got there, I was waiting. I was like at the door with my hands up, like, come pick me up, take me now. And then she found another sitter, and note that she never took me back to that same sitter. But then she found another one, and she said that I would see her come in the door and I would go off running, playing with, the other little girls that, were the daughters of the woman who was keeping me. And she had to keep reminding me, like, Felicia, we're going to be leaving soon, because I was just happy as a clam, playing with the other kids. So, you know, even for neurotypical kids, pay attention to, what your child, when your child is protesting about something, and you're not going to know everything, but try to figure out, maybe what the reason might be. And
Yeah.
having a relationship, you said something, I'm sorry, is very important too, like speaking to other parents, because maybe if you have a conversation with another parent who has a child in the same care, or with the same caregiver, maybe there's something they were thinking of, but they didn't want to say anything. And then, sometimes, it sparks an idea if you, convey something to somebody else, and they say, oh, you know, and maybe they begin to think about how their child is reacting, it's important. It's important to share as other parents, and also just being so observant. You brought
Yeah.
up really good points.
Even in programs that can happen, you can tell when your child, the behavior changes, or, like it might not be something as severe as that, even. And just if you have a nonverbal child on the spectrum, just the way they act, like, because maybe a different teacher or aide or somebody else that's in the classroom, they don't like, connect, like you're saying, like, when you wanted to go to that one daycare, you liked it better. Your mother could tell it was different. You wanted to stay and stuff like that. Over the years, I always try to pay attention what changed in the classroom, what other children were in the classroom even, what's making them have more behaviors or not want to be in the classroom or not be on the bus or whatever has changed. And there's been incidences in not, thank God, my son's programs, but things have happened in programs where, people were accused of doing something to somebody or, like other schools you hear about. And again, your child is going to mostly tell you everything, just even if they're nonverbal, their behavior is going to change, or they're going to have a hard time going or acting up, or somehow they're trying to tell you something. So.
Right. On the flip side, as kids are older, behaviors might change. Our children, especially our children, their behaviors are changing. You have to wonder why they're changing. And sometimes they're not being treated very well in school. So, you have to ask them, and sometimes they'll say it, because I know my son went through a period where things weren't going pretty well in school. He was being bullied, and he would come home and he would say, he can't say it to me because the kids are saying that if you tell the parents you're nothing but a baby or a blabbermouth or a snitch, and we don't snitch. And I used to say to him, but how is mom supposed to help you? How am I, you're upset about something, please talk to me. And eventually he would talk to me and tell me what's going on. But things, they go from a version where they're not when they're young, and then you go from a version where they get older and they start showing negative behavior. And so you have to wonder why and look into it, because essentially what ended up happening with my child is he ended up having PTSD, and that's how he ended up in neurofeedback. And thank God that worked. But a lot of times people see kids having meltdowns or kids having an attitude, and they're saying, oh, they're bad kids, but they're not really bad kids. They're going through something, and
Absolutely.
and instead of labeling them with that, they need help. It's having an open mind, being a little bit more flexible. But that's usually what ends up happening, especially with our kids on the spectrum. I find that a lot of them have gone through bullying, and it's because of PTSD, or they're depressed because they've gone through bullying. But yeah, everybody needs to look at their child, no matter what age, and if they're having behaviors, then it's because of something. It is a conversation that needed to be had. So many parents don't know what to do. You get phone calls from schools, and because they can't take it, and you can't figure out why it's happening, and everything's fine at home, where the child prefers to be home, and the school's having issues. But you have to send the child to school, but there's issues at school that are going on, or wherever, and the behaviors are changing. It's being manifested at home, it's being manifested in school, and it's a little hard to get them back into their normal behavior, but it's not something that you can control either. So it's hard.
Parenting all around is very hard.
No,
All
I
around.
And sometimes it's not even something that somebody else did. It could be the child, and it's just a period in time where it's just they don't want to go, they don't want to do their therapy, or just like any neurotypical kid. But you have to figure it out. You have to listen to your child, even when they don't talk. What can we do to make it easier? What can we do to change it up? What can we do to, like, change the routine even, it may be something as simple as that, but anything, they're trying to communicate with you regardless. So
Right.
it may not be something that's being done to them either.
No,
So,
it is right. It's something that it could be the environment. They don't like the color of the walls. It's
right.
like,
That's what I'm saying. We have to listen. Like our listening skills are a little bit different in that case. Like when they can't talk, or it's just. So what can like you said? What can I do to help you? I can't help you unless I know. So if you don't talk, you have to ask these questions to the therapist, to the teacher, and say, "All right, where is he sitting in the room? What does he do when he comes off the bus? Has it changed with the different kids in the classroom? Certain kids. My son is sound sensory. So are there new kids in the class that there's a certain sound that you wouldn't think anything of, but that might be bothering my child because he sounds sensory. So over time, now his behavior's changed because of something we wouldn't even notice in the classroom. So,
right.
I mean, again, it doesn't matter the extreme, whether it's something bad, something has to be changed. There's just signs and things we have to do to help our children differently, or to communicate with them, or pull the information out of them, or do things to change it up. So,
I mean, it could even also be as simple as, like, when you talked about sound sensory, it could even be as simple as like their clothing that they're wearing that day, could be bothering them because of how it fits, or the texture of it, or the tag, or those are all things that are magnified, in our children, and where somebody else, it doesn't bother them at all. They don't, notice or feel, but for our kids, it's magnified times whatever, 4, 10, whatever. And, sometimes they don't even know themselves, that, these socks are too tight, and, the elastic on it is too tight. And I just can't take that pressure, where some kids like the pressure, of something that, fits close and fits tight on them. But if they can't recognize it themselves, then, it's always a mystery. We're always on a hunt, a mystery hunt to find a solution, to the problem. I said it before, I'll say it again. We are out of the box thinkers, and have to be. Not even, we
Right.
have to be. The
we're our
problem solve
children's
all the
advocates
time.
too. So,
Absolutely.
on
Absolutely.
any end of this, like communication and finding out, and
But once again, communication. We have to be flexible. We have to communicate. We have to figure it out. Um, and no matter how good or how bad it is, we have to be there for them.
And all of our children are already out of school, out of
Are are out of school.
elementary, middle school, and high school. And, the parenting is still going on, where some neurotypical parents are, have really released their children into the world.
young
And
adulthood, right? Yeah.
I'm sorry?
To young adulthood, like their next
Yes,
step when they go off to
the next
college or
step,
whatever it is
the
they do.
next
Yeah.
chapter. And
Right.
we still have to parent differently, depending on what's going on with our young person.
While my son is in college, I've already told him, at the beginning, I thought, hey, you want to go live at school? He was like, no, I'm not for that. So I actually thought that a program that, just to give him that experience, because he really does need to let go a little bit.
Is there like
Mhm.
a respite kind of thing that he could do, like a weekend kind of thing to try out? Like,
No, I am actually thinking, when we had Carolyn Bilal on, she was going through My Connect, and there was that thing that I asked her about. They do a semester there, and their main goal is to teach them uh,
independent living, like,
independent skills, right? So I'm like, I think that's what I'm going to do. This is kind of nice because I was like, I think you should go live on campus. He's like, no, I don't want to do that.
I think sometimes it's like with foods, they say that a child has to try a food X number of times before they'll, accept it into their palate. And we know that our children, it could be, a whole other story. But I bring that up to just say that maybe just keep planting the seed with him,
Well,
and
that's
maybe someday he'll say, oh, okay,
Could he
Well,
do
that-
it with like a friend? So it's like a buddy system, like
buddy
somebody that he
system, yeah.
knows and somebody else that would be doing something like that?
I want him to. With him, it's transition, so I have to keep talking about it with him to transition him. But he'll eventually do it. But I just, I have to start now to get him to do it. Mine is not the one that, like I said, he's not the one that's going to graduate on time. He will do it, even, he's more than capable of doing it, but it's going to be on his terms. It's going to be on his terms and when he's ready. And a lot of times what holds him back is the transition part of it.
Mhm.
So he will do it, but this program, I want him to do it. So I've been, every now and then mentioning it.
But I mean, that's what it is. It's just planting the seeds and continually bringing up the conversations and the topics that maybe they're not ready to adopt just yet, but you just kind of keep it in the atmosphere, as I say, for them, keep it in the atmosphere so that at some point, they will latch on. My mother always says, ideas are caught, not taught.
Right.
And she said, there's so many things that we all experience and come past, but those ideas are really caught because they're out and, out there and you catch on to the idea as opposed to, when some things are really taught and drilled, then they don't always stick,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't. And I've learned in the past that if I force him to do it, it just doesn't work out. I end up either wasting money or, it or having to go get him. It doesn't work out. So it's
Yeah.
gotta be when he's ready, And once again, flexible. We just have to understand that that's how he is, and the right time will come. It's not to say that it will never come, but the right time.
Amen. I think that is really the piece,
Yeah. You have to know your child. You have to know what sets them off, what doesn't set them off. You really have to. It didn't happen overnight for me. I too went through a trial and error period. But you have to know your child. You have to know, how far he can take it, how far, and then, I know he will make the right decision. Thank you for watching tonight.
We'd like to thank Altis for allowing us this platform to use to share our ideas and our thoughts.
We want to remind everybody that we are parents. We're not professionals. We're sharing our experiences so that we can help you with your autism child.
Follow us on social media and don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.